everybody, welcome to part 2 of how I draw ponies, and in this episode we are continuing with the picture of Fluttershy, as you can see, and we are going to add more of the characteristics of the character in this video. So let's get going. So basically what we're going to do here is just make things a bit brighter so things can be a bit more differentiated basically. So we are going to go up here to new layer. Press OK. And we're going to add the expression first. So we're going to move the reference just to here and then zoom in on the face. So we're zoomed in on the face here, and with Fluttershy's eyes, they are shaped slightly differently from the rest of the characters. And she has more eyelashes here and there as well. So we're just going to emulate that in the sketch. Set the brush to white would help first. So click on your color picker, go to white, press OK. Over the size of the brush to, no, this is the flow, sorry, through 30%, and the size of the brush, which is at 15, should actually be at 10. So there we go. So with the shape of the eye, obviously the eye needs to look as though it is actually inside the head and not just sitting. So like the design of the characters in the show are very flat. They're not three-dimensional at all. So when you're drawing the eyes, try and make them look a bit more realistic than they do in the show. Unless you're going to copy the style of the show, then that's fine. Do that, but just keep in mind that the style of the show is not very realistic, so when you try and draw something else, you're going to struggle. So we're just adding some more detail to the snout here, like that, and we're going to add the mouth. Now as you can see, the way that I draw the jawline is a bit different to the show. It's very rounded and circular, so the actual jaw here is shaped, well, kind of more like what a proper jaw is shaped like, so we'll just add that in. And also you'll notice with the characters in the show, they have no eyebrows. I always put eyebrows in when I draw ponies. It just makes more sense for them to actually have eyebrows, so we are going to do that shortly. Now with Fluttershy, when you usually draw her, she has an almost worried look to her expression when she's smiling sometimes, so we're trying to emulate that here. And just add the highlights. Early days of drawing here at the moment. And bring this up a bit because it's not quite the right shape. And with this ear over here, we're not going to see that, so there's no point in drawing it in at this stage. So now you draw in the mouth, and with the snout, with the shape of the mouth, you actually start off looking like it's sad and then you bring it up. This is the standard way that I usually draw expressions on ponies. So now because it's Fluttershy, we're just going to add the light lashes even. Can't talk today, I have the dumb. And there's the basic expression for Fluttershy. We just zoom out there. Move this over. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is give more detail to everything else. And this is before we add the mane and tail. We need to tidy up the rest of the picture a little bit, so that's what we're going to do. So make sure you're on the right layer here. And you just want to keep your reference here. We're just going to focus on the body just now. So we'll just change the shape of this, bring it in. You want to make sure there's follow through for the whole body. So although the main body is tear shaped, obviously you need to kind of, sometimes with the base sketch things aren't quite in the right place, so you just draw the next stage of the sketch in where it should be. So as you can see, I've just moved things over a little bit. Her belly was sticking out a bit too much, so we've just moved that over. And with the legs, they're a bit too small, so we're just going to make them a little bit bigger. And try not to make the actual bottom of the feet, or well, the hooves basically, too square. The front is straight down like that, and then it curves in at the bend here where the circle is, and then it comes round and meets the body. And that's the front leg. And then the other leg. Now with the back here, ignoring the wings for now anyway, we just bring up the shoulder blade a little bit, and then just like that, and then bring it up for the flank. Bring it in a bit because it's a bit too big, and curl in the leg here. Make sure the legs are more or less the same size. So there you get a better idea of how the main body works. You have to remember that although we're drawing a flying pose, the weight is equally distributed throughout her body. So you need to show that clearly, that is what's happening. And how you do that, you just make sure, looking at it, studying up on anatomy, if all of the weight was actually on the legs, the pose would be slightly different, but all of the weight is actually in the main body, and she's leaning back a little bit with her head going down a bit like this, so the weight is evenly distributed as she's flying. So if I just move the reference over a bit, we will add detail to the wing. Exactly the same idea as before, you're just adding more detail and just making things a bit more structured. If you want to, you can add a bit more fluff at this stage on the wings, because I like making wings quite fluffy. And then for when the wing comes forward a little bit foreshortening here, which basically means that the closer something is to the screen, the bigger it appears, and then it gets smaller as it goes away. So that's one wing done. Then move over to the other one and do the exact same thing. Okay, so we have the basic sketch of the body done, so the next thing you need to do is add the mane and tail. And obviously we are drawing Fluttershy, so she has a very unique mane and tail, as it is going over one side over here, which is hiding part of her head. So this is what you need to do with reference. You just look at what it looks like there and how you would draw it. You're not really copying, you're emulating it really. So you're just looking where the hairline ends, and it's just above her eyes. So it starts around here. So when you're drawing the rest of the hair, you need to make sure that there is follow through. So in other words, it goes round like this, so when it goes past behind the ear, it needs to look like it's continuous. Just make it come over the shoulder like it does in the picture. And you can make it longer or shorter depending on your preference. And now we're moving on to the tail, and with Fluttershy's tail, it is a lot longer than the other characters. In fact, it goes past her feet, and most of the other characters, it just reaches the end of their feet. So we're going to emulate that here. When you're drawing tails, the difficulty that a lot of people have, that I have observed anyway, is that the tail sometimes looks like, when they draw it, it looks like it is actually coming out of the anus. And the way to avoid that is to remember that the tail is actually simply a continuation of the spine. So you see where the spine is on the character, runs from the top of the jawline here, right down, Comes up like that. So when just before it starts to curve off into the actual butt or flank, the spine continues out like this. So therefore, so does the tail. So once you've drawn that in, you bring the hair around and make sure that when you draw the tail, it gets thicker. It's thin at first, then it gets thicker, and then it gets thin again. See, it's thin here, then thick, and then thin. And again, like how we draw the mane, make sure that there's follow through. Even if you have to draw a line over the top, if it's going behind something. And then you curve it round, and the curl of the tail needs to lead the eye back to the character. As you can see with the design of this tail, there is a curve that goes away, then back toward the character, and then away again, and then back toward. So that's what you want to have happen here. So now we're just going to have a look and see if there's anything that needs tidied up before we continue any further. Some of the proportions aren't quite right, like say maybe she's a bit too fat, or the stomach isn't quite right, so you just correct that however you want. You might want to get rid of it altogether. It's just a case of trial and error. You draw and you work on the sketch line as much as you can until you're happy with it. So with areas that are coming toward you, you want to have the lines be a little bit stronger. Actually with this hair here, excuse me, thicken that up. And make sure that where the mane ends, it doesn't kind of squash into the tail. You don't want that to happen. Like when you're colouring the character, when this area is going to be pink, you want some space between the tail and the mane here, where the tip of the mane and the beginning of the tail starts. Aesthetically, it's better to look at, it's not so confusing. So now once you're happy with the base sketch, you should now move on to the inking stage. And usually what I do is, because I've got the sketch layers all grouped together here, close that. See, you have the base sketch here and then another group, which is what we see now. So you can leave the original sketch layer just there if you want to, or get rid of it altogether. I think we'll keep it and just lower the opacity a little bit more. I tend to like to leave the sketch layers visible when I'm drawing on top of them if I'm inking them. So we'll just lower this down to about 50%, and we'll start a new layer and we'll start to ink this. So you change the colour to black, or like it is in the show, Fluttershy's ink colour is actually a dark yellow on her body and then a darker pink for her mane and tail. But for the sake of this sketch, we're just going to keep things very simple, black and white. We're not going to delve too deep into colour at this stage. Later on, when we're actually colouring her, we will. And I will show you how to do that in the next video. But first we're going to ink her, and it's very basic. You're just going over what you already have. Make sure the brush is at full flow and the brush is hard, not soft, hard. You want it hard. So, well, I want it like that anyway. It's just better that way. So you start wherever you want to start, it doesn't really matter. I'd like to start with the face. And again, you're just keeping things very loose at this stage again. Obviously with drawing, everyone has different ways of doing things. This is my way of doing it. it's not the right way. It might not be your way, but it's the way I do it, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. So hopefully with what I'm doing, it might help somebody with what they're drawing. Okay, and that's the inking stage more or less done. So we will look at how to add colour and improve various parts that we might need to later on. Once I pass this stage, once I start colouring, the way that I do it is very messy. So I will show you how I colour in the next video. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm Mad Munchkin. Stay creative. Bye. Hey, thanks for watching this video, and before you go, don't forget to show your support by hitting that like button. That will help me out a lot. Or if you really liked this video, check out some of my other stuff I've done. And hey, go ahead and subscribe too if you want. You can also show your support by supporting me on Patreon, Facebook, Twitter, or you can also check out my DeviantArt page for my artworks, as well as find out how you can buy my artwork and even get some commissioned work too. Thanks for watching, see you again soon.